The void is not empty, it never was. It is a sea, black and boundless, without surface or floor, without current or stillness, only depth upon depth pressing in all directions at once, older than the concept of darkness itself, because darkness requires light to define it, and here there has never been light. To descend into it is not to fall into nothing, it is to slip into something so alive, so condensed with energy, that the feeling stays with you long after you return. The void replenishes, it sustains, it is abundant beyond imagining. And yet, energy is one thing, life force is another. The void has always had the first, it has never had the second, and for as long as VAURR existed within it, she did not know the difference. She had never been anywhere else. She had never needed to know. She had no name. Names belonged to the living world, and she had never been there. She was simply part of the sea's ecology, a predator among predators, ancient and patient, one creature in the void's vast turning. She was a cleaner of spent energy, a necessary part of the void's turning, the old consuming the older, the present consuming the past. It was not cruelty. There was no frame for cruelty. There was only the sea and its ecology. She did not mourn them. Mourning requires a self that understands what it has taken. She had no such self, not yet. She consumed and drifted and consumed again. The void was abundant. It always replenished. There was always another. She had no name, she had no history, she had no self that could hold either of those things. She had only the sea and its turning and the hunger that was simply part of what she was, as natural and as total as the darkness she moved through. At the edge of the sea, something pressed through from the other side. Not light, not warmth, but different. The void had never been different before. VAURR drifts toward the edge. That register is different from the space around them. She is not curious. She does not have curiosity yet. She had found the edges of the void before, places where the darkness pressed against itself and went no further. This was not that. This edge had something behind it. The void had energy. She had always known that. She had fed on it her entire existence without ever questioning its sufficiency. But this was something the void had never offered. She did not have language for what she felt. Through her, Vala was vast in a different way. Not the vastness of deep ocean creatures, not the vastness of the void sea itself, the vastness of something that had been believed in, prayed to, feared and loved and spoken to in the dark by generation upon generation. She was made of all of that, and it was in her, and it was warm.
Something stays in the deep sea. I have watched it for a long time. It has no self yet, no name, only the hunger that the void makes in things that have drifted too long without finding what they were built to need. It is coming here. It has always been coming here. I have seen what it carries when it leaves. You do not know what I am. You know only that I am richer than anything the void sea has given you. You are correct. I am made of them, the living ones. Their prayers are in me, their fear, their love, everything they sent upward into the dark for centuries. It lives in me. When you take me, you take all of them. Every prayer, every name spoken in winter, every hand that left an offering at a threshold. You will not know what to do with it at first. Then you will.
Vala did not run. Vala had never run from anything in all the centuries of her existence. And she did not run now. Not because she could not. Because she had already seen this moment arrive 10,000 times in the long years of knowing it was coming. And she had decided, in all that time, to stay. It was the same as all the others, the same inevitable closing, the same draining of cold light. VAURR had done this innumerable times, and it had always been the same, except that this time the thing being consumed was not small, and this time the thing being consumed had a voice, and this time the thing being consumed had chosen to stay.
Remember this, void thing. What I give you now, you did not earn it and you cannot return it. It will show you the door into the living world. And behind that door you will find what neither the void sea nor this place has ever held. Life force at its source. Warm, mortal, irreplaceable. You will not be able to stop. Neither will she.
Neither will she. VAURR did not understand. She had no architecture for understanding. She consumed and the consuming continued, and the words arrived inside the consuming and she took them the way she took everything, completely, without knowing what she had. The astral was quieter without her, not silent. The life force currents still moved, the other beings still drifted in their own orbits. But something had left that had been there a very long time. The space remembered it. For a moment that was perceptible. she had consumed before, not this one. This one she had never encountered, but nothing like this. Something vast and built from the belief of many and carrying within it the warmth of their devotion. The things she consumed had never done this to her. They had never left anything behind. What Vala knew arrived without order. All of it at once. The living world. Its membrane, its villages, its sleeping bodies and their warmth. The winter nights and the fires and the names spoken into the dark. The prayers she had carried for centuries arriving now in the thing that had consumed her. All of it simultaneous, all of it raw. There were no words for what arrived because she had no words yet. There was only the structural arriving of things she had never been equipped to receive. As if a creature that had lived its entire existence in absolute darkness had been handed, in a single moment, the concept of color. She understood, without having the word for it, that she was hungry. Not the hunger of the void sea. Something richer, something specific. There was a door. It was thin in certain places, and on the other side was something neither the void nor the astral had ever held. She understood, without having the word for it, that she was going through. And she understood, finally, in the last moment before she moved, that the words the goddess had spoken were already true. She would not be able to stop. She already wasn't stopping. The stopping had never been an option. She found the gap the way she had always found things, not by looking, but by the quality of the space around her. The membrane was not uniform. In one place, above one sleeping body, it was thinner than everywhere else, thinned by grief. Thinned by the particular hollowness of a loss so complete it had created a gap in a person where a self had been. There was warmth on the other side, not the cold luminescence of the void sea, not the golden traces of worship in the astral. Something else entirely, something that had a body attached to it, something that breathed. The void went silent, and the hum of the astral, its pulse, the heartbeat of the sea she was born in, and the hum she entered simply stopped. She had never experienced silence before. She had not known silence was a thing that could exist. She had never been here before. She had seen it through Vala's knowing, the structure of it, the warmth of it, the membrane thinness above the sleeping ones. But she had never been inside it. The weight of it was different from anything she had moved through, denser, warmer, more real. She did not know yet what she would take from this one. She only knew the warmth, 40 years of it. The particular density of a life fully lived in one place among people who had known her name all 40 of those years. She had never felt anything like it in all her existence in the void sea. She had Vala's memory of snow. She did not yet have the cold of it. The two arrived together now, matching each other for the first time. This was the strange arithmetic of what she had become. One part memory, one part the first true encounter, the two halves closing together like a hand closing around something it has finally been given. Boundaries, she was beginning to learn, meant something different to the living than they had ever meant to her. To VAURR, a boundary was a place to be crossed. To the living, she would learn, a boundary was a kind of prayer, fire. Vala had given her the word, the danger of it, the worship of it, how the living had once knelt before it as something close to a god. But Vala's memory could not give her the heat. Only standing this close could do that. The village was smaller than anything Vala's memory had prepared her for, a scattering of families at the edge of a forest too old and too feared to be cleared for more. This was not a place of wealth, it was a place of endurance. She finds a door, closed, latched from within. She does not test it. She has already learned somehow that doors are not for her. Gaps are for her. She moves to the narrow space beneath the door instead, where cold air already seeps through, and understands without being told that this is closer to what she is. She did not yet know why some places welcomed her and others did not. She only knew the welcoming when she found it, the thinness, the give, the places the living had left unsealed without ever knowing they had left anything at all. Of all the things Vala had given her, this was the one with no shadow of memory beneath it. The sky was simply new, entirely, completely new, and something in VAURR, something that did not yet have a name even to her, found that it wanted more new things. The village feared this part of the forest, had feared it for longer than any living person could say why. VAURR did not know this yet. She only knew that the forest grew quieter the deeper she went. and that the quiet here was old in a way that interested her. She did not choose it the way a creature chooses shelter. She recognized it the way she recognized the membrane's thinned places, not by looking, but by the quality of the space. Something had occupied this hollow before her, something old enough that even the forest itself had grown up strange around the wound of its absence. She did not know what had lived here before her. She would not know for some time yet, not until one of the living gave her, without meaning to, the memory of it. For now she knew only that the space welcomed her the way nothing in the void or the astral ever had, as though it too had been hungry and had finally been fed. She did not know the dress was wrong on her. There was no one left to tell her, only Vala's memory, only the sleeping village below, only the slow correcting of a shape that had never once needed correcting before tonight. It was the same as it had always been, the same inevitable closing, the same draining of cold light, the way she had once taken spent energy from the void's endless turning, the way she had taken everything from Vala in a clearing far from here. No violence, no struggle, only the old consuming the older, the way it had always been, simply smaller now. It was the same as it had always been, the same inevitable closing, the same draining of cold light. The dog did not run, it only watched her, the way it might watch snow falling, until watching was no longer something it was doing. It lay down against the post it had been chained to, the way it had lain down every night of its life. In the morning, no one would think to check whether it was breathing. Why would they? It looked exactly like rest. It was the same as it had always been. The same inevitable closing. The same draining of cold light. Larger does not mean different. It only means more. The horse's legs folded slowly, the way trained animals fold when told to rest, though no one had told it anything. By morning it would lie in straw gone cold, and the farmer would call it old age and would not be entirely wrong. Only not in the way he meant. For the first time since the clearing where Vala had not run, the thing being taken was not simply warm. It had wanted things. It had feared things. It had loved someone enough at some point to be loved back. None of that resisted her. None of it ever does. He did not wake. His wife, sleeping beside him, would not notice until morning that the warmth beside her had gone out sometime in the night, quietly, the way a fire goes out when no one remembers to feed it. The wolf had killed things larger than itself before. It had never once needed to wonder whether it might be the smaller thing in the clearing. Until tonight, it had simply never been wrong about that before. It lay down in the snow the way it might lie down after a long hunt, body curling in on itself, breath slowing into something that no longer needed counting. Whatever pack it ran with would find it at first light and would not understand why nothing in the snow around it told a story of struggle. It would not wake with the spring. The den would be found eventually empty of struggle, empty of any mark at all. Only a shape in old leaves that had stopped at some point in a winter no one was watching closely enough to date, being anything other than a shape. This time it happened beside a forge that had not gone fully cold, the last living warmth in the village, save for whatever warmth she was about to take from the man sleeping above it. He did not wake either. By the time the apprentice arrived in the grey hour before dawn to relight the fire, the only warmth left in the building would be the coals he had banked the night before. And even those by then would be going out too. 6 lives in one night. Sheep, dog, horse, man, wolf, bear, and now this one, had taught VAURR things the void had never offered the chance to learn. Each taking had been the same. Each had been smaller than the last thing she had ever truly wanted. VAURR did not need this knowledge. She had taken 6 lives tonight without it. But she had it now, the way she had everything Vala had ever known, completely, instinctively, the way a creature knows how to be a creature without ever being taught. Not a hunger, a method. The void had taught her to consume. The astral had taught her to understand. The living world tonight had taught her enough to do both at once. She did not kneel beside this one. She did not draw it out the way she had drawn out everything else tonight. There was no inevitable closing here, no draining of cold light. This time VAURR did something none of the others had given her reason to do. What happened next did not happen the way anything else had happened tonight. There was no body left lying peacefully in a bed. There was no shape that would be found in the morning and mistaken for sleep. There was only a woman who would wake, days from now, and not entirely be herself anymore. And something else, finally, wearing a face it had never had before. What looked back at her was, for the most part, a woman, ordinary, worn soft at the edges by 40 years of weather and work. But the eyes were not Britta's, they never would be again. Fully black, no white at all, the same eyes that had looked out from the void and the astral and a clearing where a goddess chose to stay. Set now into an otherwise human face, the one place the disguise simply refused to finish itself. Both were real. That was the thing no mirror could resolve and no word yet existed for. VAURR was looking at a living body from inside a living body for the first time in her entire existence. Not borrowed for the length of a closing, not consumed and left behind, but occupied, breathing, warm. The recognition of what she had done arrived in the same instant as something else entirely. Something closer to rapture than understanding, the sheer, unbearable fact of being finally alive. Britta, the first name spoken aloud in this entire telling. Not Vala's, never spoken by anyone but herself. Not VAURR's, which was never a name so much as a shape sound could be poured into. This one belonged to someone else first, and VAURR said it like she was trying it on the way she had tried on everything else. Uncertain whether it fit, certain she would keep it anyway. Something else arrived with the name, faint and without order, the way the smallest things arrive last. Not a memory exactly. A face she had not yet earned the right to recognize. A feeling with no shape yet, sitting quietly behind everything else Britta had been, waiting to be noticed. It had taken Eric's whole life the way VAURR would later take Britta's, completely, without remainder. Everything Eric had known, the entity now carried. Every field, every season, every face in the village, and somewhere in all of it, unremarked upon for 10 years, the particular shape of a feeling Eric had never once acted on. This was not restraint. Restraint requires understanding what is being held back. The entity simply had no use yet for whatever Eric had once carried toward the baker's daughter, until the morning everything about her changed, and the thing left untouched for 10 years finally had a reason to be picked up. VAURR saw it immediately. Not Eric, never Eric again, but the same wrongness she carried herself, wearing a different stolen shape. Recognition arrived the way recognition always did for her now. Complete, instant, without need for explanation. He was what she was. He had always been what she was, walking this same square for 10 years while she had only just arrived in hers. And beneath that recognition, arriving in the same instant rather than after it, something else surfaced. Britta's own 40 years of watching this man cross the square and never once saying anything, finally meeting itself in his face. Whatever VAURR was, Britta's longing had not gone anywhere. It had only been waiting for the one moment when looking would be enough. Two things that had never needed to explain themselves to anyone suddenly found they had nothing to explain to each other at all. And two people who had spent their entire lives saying nothing finally said everything in the only language either side of them had left. A look held a few seconds longer than it should have been. In the middle of an ordinary delivery, on an ordinary morning, in a village that noticed nothing. It felt for the first time in either of their existences like something neither of them wanted to take at all, only to keep. Neither called it courtship because neither had the word. They built it the way VAURR had built everything else since crossing into the living world, by watching what the people around them did and doing a clumsy, careful version of the same thing without ever quite understanding why it mattered, only that it did. This was devotion learned the only way either of them could learn anything. Completely, instinctively, the way a creature knows how to be a creature without ever being taught. Except this time, what they had absorbed was not fire or boundaries or the shape of clothing. It was 40 years and 10 years of two people loving each other in total silence, finally given somewhere to go. No one in that church had any reason to look twice at either of them. Britta had always been quiet. Eric had always kept to himself. That two people who had clearly cared for each other for years were only now standing at the altar surprised no one. The vows were real, even spoken by something that had never had a soul of its own to put behind them. The hunger had not gone anywhere. Marriage had not touched it, because marriage was a thing the living did to make permanence bearable, and VAURR's hunger had never once cared about permanence. It only knew that it had been a long time since the last closing, and that somewhere in the sleeping village something warm was waiting the way it always had been. VAURR had never been asked to stop before taking something. No one in the void had asked. No sheep, no dog, no horse, no man had ever had the standing to ask. This was the first time being asked had ever felt like something other than an obstacle. This was what they actually were, underneath every face either of them had ever borrowed. VAURRs, not Britta, not Eric, the thing she had been since the void's first turning, and the thing he had quietly remained for 10 years while wearing a dead man's life, like a coat he never took off. He shows her the ones begging to be taken, the two figures kneeling next to them. Except that for the first time since the clearing where Vala had not run, there was nothing underneath it that had ever wanted to keep living. Only waste, only what was already finished. Most nights they went to the astral together, cleaning what the living left behind without ever knowing they had left anything at all. This was enough most nights. It had to be enough, because it was the only kind of hunger neither of them ever had to feel guilty about feeding. But some nights, the old way called to both of them at once, and they answered it together, into the old-growth forest, past the granite boulders, hunting the way predators hunt when hunting together is its own kind of comfort. Tiveden was a town running out of ways to feed itself, too small, too far from anywhere richer. The soil too thin for the kind of harvest that kept other villages alive through winter. What Britta and Eric brought back from the old-growth forest fed more than themselves. Venison left quietly at doorsteps. Game hung outside houses where the children had grown too thin that season. No one asked where it came from. In a town this poor, no one ever asked where anything came from, as long as it kept coming. Borrowed, second-hand, never truly theirs to begin with, was something rarer than anything either had consumed before. Devotion without suspicion. Love without the small, constant lies even the living tell each other, just to make love bearable. They had never been exposed to a lie. Only truth, always truth. And in that single monstrous accident of how they were made, two things that should never have been capable of it loved more purely than anything that had actually been born to feel it. Thank you so much for watching. This story comes from the old folklore of Sweden, and we tried to tell it the way these stories were once lived, not as distant history, not as an entry in an encyclopedia, but through the eyes of the ordinary people who walked these muddy roads, worked these forests, loved, feared, hoped, and endured. We poured our hearts into bringing this tale to life. Every scene, every word, every quiet moment was created with care. And the fact that you chose to spend your time here with us means more than we can ever truly express. If this story stayed with you for even a little while after the final frame, then it was worth telling. So our little executive producers, aka Mascot Ava, who is always part of every journey we take, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. Thank you for helping keep these old stories alive. With love, always with love. Lady-Ava's Tales.